and welcome to the SOS She Made It series. I'm so excited today because you are #blessed with Krystal Roxx and Emilie Bellet, who are my total girl boss idols. You're such like hustlers with a heart is how I would describe you guys. I'm just so excited that you get to learn from them. We're going to be getting under the hood of what it's really like to run a business, to grow a business, to build a community. We're going to be talking about the good days, the bad days, so the good and the ugly. Most importantly, you get to hear the real stories, so there'll be lots of real talk. I hope you love it. Over and out. Okay, ladies, so normally I do the intros and I'll be like, this is how I met these ladies, which I'll get to, but you guys have such fantastic stories. So Emilie, you start. Talk to me about how you got started. So talk to me about day one. So Emilie, you at home, you've just done your first startup. How did you get the idea for Vestpod, and how did you've literally started your Instagram account and you have 0 followers. Like, where did you go?
I think in finance, everything looked really, really big. Mm-hmm. So you can have a big project, but how do you actually start? So I started really simply as like writing about money and sort of building the brand, building the community. So for me, the community was really an important aspect. So writing the newsletter from home, sending it every week, learning about money because I didn't know anything about pensions and ISA and like how to save, how to repay debt. And sending it to my friends, harassing my friends, getting all the email addresses I could from everyone. And then they started sending to their friends. So that's how I started Vestpod, is really, starting this weekly newsletter base. And it was maybe just 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, and it was as simple as, because that's what we were talking about, Danielle earlier, who started our Manchester, SOS Manchester. And she did something very similar where she would just reach out to her friends and then the people that she worked with, and then she'd be like, please, can you pass this on? Is that how you got started?
That's how it started. And I think once you do that, something I had very early on was the mission. So the big mission. And I was like, okay, I want to empower women financially. And that's the phase where you research your idea, you meet a lot of people. And I met these women from a VC fund, and she was like, okay, how big is your idea? How many women do you want to empower? And I was like, 1 million. She was like, this is really good, 1 million women. And I was like, oh, shit. So that became my mission, empower 1 million women financially. But the reality is you have to break it down. You don't know where you're going to go. You don't know what's going to be the path, what's going to be the journey. You know where you want to get, and then you do all these small, crappy things every day, and it's really, really hard.
What's one of the crappy things?
For me, I still write the newsletter every week, so that's quite a lot of work. I also have a writer who helps me. I use MailChimp. I do the design of my website. I put the events up on my website. I write the Eventbrite, like everything. So but this is your day-to-day, and it's the same for you guys. So I think when we think about running a business, it's all these like very, very simple things, and they're hard work. And
you can underestimate that as well, because it's something, just for the viewers or listeners, I'll often go to these ladies and get advice from them. And I'll say you amaze me, Emilie, because I look at everything you've done, and honestly, it looks like you've got a really big team behind you, because because you just pull it off. And I love that about both of you. Like you, Krystal, I know that if I run an event, like AG today, you'll come through. I just know you'll be there, and I there's no doubt in my mind that you won't deliver. And I think you both are the same in that way. But Emilie, everything you do seems to be very organic. Like we'll talk about PR, and you go, I do my own PR, and I'm like, how? Because your PR is endless. The fact that you're able to do that is incredible. So Krystal, how old were you when you started your kind of like Krystal Roxx?
Oh, that's a good question. It just happened. I don't even remember. Well, a little backstory. So I used to be a dancer. Mm-hmm. I was in theatre in the West End, and I finished a show which I adored so much, and I was due to do something else. It was the tour of Chicago, I just, something in me changed. I was going to be a swing. It wasn't quite the way I envisaged things, and so I don't know. I've had a very strong internal voice forever thankfully, and I just decided not to do it. And from that moment, everything changed, and there was an opportunity. I was teaching to become a DJ. I heard somebody else was a DJ, and frankly, they were earning more money than I was teaching. So I submitted a mix, and 4 days later, I was opening a club on the Embankment in the West End, and I'd never done it before in my life at all. But I'd learnt how to produce and mix and make edits of music. So I became a DJ, and that was essentially the same point, the same outlet of creativity in a way as it was performing. It's just I was using my hands and not my feet. And so I was kind of able to interact with an audience. And so from that, I created this persona, and originally it was called
Can't say it.
because you know when you're
It's not recorded, it's fine.
Well, when you're a dancer in the West End, you're called a dolly bird, or you used to be called a dolly bird.
Okay.
You know, basically it was a nickname for a showgirl. I was very much a showgirl. And so I was Dolly DJ for a while.
Dolly DJ!
And I swear to God,
That's cool.
and I thought it was a really good idea. And I made business cards, and it was like, it was really, I don't know if you know Head Candy, it's actually where I started DJing, but it was very kind of on that kind of cartoony vibe. And I'd do 6 hours straight of DJing in a venue that was like a after hours place. So you get people out after work, play, and you'd play the same set twice. So you do 3 hours and you play it all over again 3 hours later. It was just this natural turnover. But I made spreadsheets, and every time someone came to request a song, I'd say, I'll play it if you give me your email address. And much to your point, I used to think, well, if I've got like lists of email addresses, and I'll just send them my mixes and send them my, like, you know, book me now kind of vibe. So I've still got them, these lists of people's email addresses, which I never use really, and mostly because they're drunkenly writing email.
I can't read that.
kind of vibe. But so yeah, and then that morphed into Krystal Roxx, which was because people used to go, "You rock." No. So I'd go, "Yeah, Krystal Roxx." Okay, but then I wrote ROXX because it was more kind of digital. Also, it sounds a little bit like a porn star. or a drag queen, but I'm kind of fine with both. So yeah, so that's how it started. Yeah.
I think Roxx diamond. I think of you in diamonds.
Thanks,
Krystal
darling.
Roxx.
You have a little tiny tattoos.
That's why I think of it. Yeah, so I don't think of porn star at all. I think of like expensive diamond.
We'll learn we'll learn how to monetize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then how did that kind of like transpose onto your Instagram? So you've got these email addresses, you start your Instagram account.
Well, look, let's be real. I am 105. So when I first started, there was no Instagram at all. Actually, you know what's been phenomenal to witness? Because I have a wonderful sister-in-law called Shona Scott, Show Me Makeup. She's a really successful makeup blogger, Instagram YouTuber. And I have one of my brothers runs a really successful clothing company, and we kind of all started it at the same time. And when Instagram and when Facebook first started, Instagram first started, all of this kind of, so you were a creative, but you didn't necessarily know how to do all of the other stuff, but you had an eye for imagery or, you know, sound or whatever, art, in however you use that form. And so it's a trial and error. But from when it first started, it wasn't so much about the algorithm. No. Now you have to be really mindful of the analytics and the posting. This is my shitty thing in the daytime thing that you were talking about, is making friends with algorithms. I didn't expect to have to do this when I was writing out, someone requesting Rihanna, and me going, write your email address down. I didn't think 10 years later I'd be going, algorithms! You know, because it's a total headache. But when it first started, it was just, you know, put out what you loved. Right. And even if it was just you that loved it, you know, there was an audience for it, you know. And then it's just been the joyful journey of finessing that, so that more people can enjoy it.
So do you find when you got started, because we interviewed Tally Rye as well, and I was talking to her about how she built her platform. So many of our instructors are going to be building their own communities and their own platforms. And she said, you know, it was easier to build a profile when I got started. Like there wasn't so much of Instagram sabotage with algorithms and that kind of thing. So
absolutely.
was it as organic as that? It was like, I'm going to put stuff that I love out there, and then people would find what you were doing.
With the Krystal Roxx, because then I had to do everything twice. So because Krystal Roxx and Superfox are both essentially businesses, people. And so it started obviously just with Krystal Roxx, and that was just kind of putting out mixes, posting about events, and just kind of more personality-based stuff that resonated.
So what advice would you give to our instructors or our community starting out in terms of finding your voice online? Because I think that's something you both do really, really well. Emilie, I think you do it brilliantly, and you're so yourself, and you put that out into the digital space so well, and you do the same thing. So what advice would you give people to find their vibe and how to communicate online?
So I think it's all about yourself, you said it. So, and I think your business when you start is going to be yourself. So don't try to be someone else. I think you hear it very often, like try to be authentic, but that's so true. And I think initially I was, trying to be like these women in finance. I was like, can I wear this leopard jacket and talk about finance? No, you can't do that. Well, actually you can do that because it's going to be yourself, and people will will listen to stories. They're not going to look at your product. They're not really going to look at what you do, but they will want to see you. And I think today is quite a good moment actually to build a brand. And I think like big brands are actually struggling sometimes to talk to users because they're just selling products. And in the space so banks, they just sell financial products. It's very impersonal. So even if they try to bring stories to the forefront, you don't see the founders, you don't hear how they started. So that makes it really hard, and that makes it easy for me to come with a story, try to make it relatable. But I think you have to also build your story. So we all have one story, but you have to pull maybe the elements that are more interesting than others. So the story with the financial advisor, it's a real story, it happens and stuff, but it's a small piece of the journey, but it became like a big piece of the journey. So I don't like talking about it, but it makes people realize, okay, so the industry is like this, so what else can we do? So I think trying to find like the pain points or like what are the stories people will listen to. For me, what was really important was about the values. So what are my values, and working in finance, there's a lot of things I don't compromise on, so I don't work with financial brands. It's really, really hard because I could make a lot more money working with them, but I don't. And I run a community and it's really hard and it's hard to scale. But you have to be quite comfortable with what you do because your story is going to be amplified and it's going to be everywhere very soon. So you talked about PR. My story was on all the papers and the FT and stuff, and I'm like, oh shit. I come from finance. I left finance, and I wasn't like super senior at the time, and I end up now running my business and being this financial space. So you have it's your name, it's your credibility. So yeah, I think you're learning, but I think having your own values and having your own story and just write it down, and then you start from it, and if you're not sure, read your story again and again and again.
Yeah, I think 2 points on that. I think it's having the confidence to just do you, and it doesn't have to be perfect first time. I think you can have a little bit of flexibility of, I'm just going to put this out there, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and having that flexibility. And then in terms of you, Krystal, did you find your voice online?
So I'm kind of still working that out. I don't think I've nailed that yet. I like at the moment, Insta stories into the liveness of that resonates well with me because I'm so much in the moment and so often I'm quite reactive.
And you're so good at that.
Well, bless you. I think hopefully that's because it's truthful, because there's no time to be anything other than truthful.
Yeah.
So it's just instantaneous. And it's exactly what's going on. And I try to, despite things being tough, I try to put out the most positive version of it. Because people are finding things tough more and more. We're talking anxiety, depression, all the other kind of elements that face us day to day, when there's so much stimulation and so much to achieve, or so much perhaps to figure out on your own terms, because there are more and more of us working for ourselves, building our own businesses and our own brands. So I feel like it's my job to put the positive spin on all of that as much as possible. So when it comes to finding your voice, it's very much kind of a learning curve. I definitely don't have it down yet, and I've been doing it 10 years more.
So it's trial and error.
And it can change also.
Can change.
I think you know, I mean, your story is your story, so it doesn't really change. But maybe there's some pieces you don't want to talk about, and now you want to talk about. But yeah, things change, and you can have different views on different things, and I think it's just being comfortable with this.
I think it's partly like taking the pressure off, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And sometimes, like with your Instagram stories, for example, you're like literally in the moment. You're DJing, you're interviewing someone, and like people can see exactly what it's like and be like, wow, they can go to the studio with you, and see what it's really like. And I think, Emilie, something that stands out to me about your story is that, and it's something I find myself doing too, is that I have a message and a mission, and I will say it 10 times a day sometimes, and I will never. Sometimes you can feel like, oh, I'm not going to say that, it's boring, people have heard it, but there's always someone that hasn't and needs to hear it. So obviously I go to lots of Vespod events, and you're so on with your story, and it's something I do too. Like, we're here to empower a generation of women. And I say it all the time. Never be afraid to totally own your mission and your story, and say it 100 times a day if you need to. So moving on to that, there's two kind of subjects I want to talk about is imposter syndrome and challenges and how you overcome them. So one of the reasons I'm so passionate about SOS, and in my career, being a dancer makes you hardcore. Like, it makes you really gritty. And it means that challenges, you still feel like a human being, you still feel pain, you still feel fear, but the difference between me and maybe someone that doesn't have that is that it won't stop me. I'll feel it, but it won't stop me. And I know that I got that in the dance studio, and it's what I want to give to our instructors and the women that they teach, or the queens that they teach. So talk to me both about a challenge that stands out to you, and how you felt and how you overcame it.
So it's hard. I think it's all about resilience, and you mentioned it. So I also used to do a lot of sports. I played for the French national team. I played field hockey for like 15 years. So I think that's where I also get it. So and the French team is not a really good team. Well, I mean, it's a lot of training, but it's not a professional team. So it's a lot of losing and winning sometimes. But then you learn a lot, and it was the best community of girls, and I really loved it. And then I went into banking, and I worked for Lehman, and it was really, really hard. So I was working, nights, weekends, like canceling holidays sometimes. It's really, really long hours. So I think I'm trying to bring everything in Vespod now, and it's hard. So in the first 2 years, I mean, how many times we were talking about that, but I think at least once a week I was like, I'm gonna stop. It doesn't work. I'm not where I want to go. It's full of challenges. It's so hard. It's myself. It's my face everywhere. Because when you work for a big corporate, you're hidden behind all these things. You have help from like so many places. It's really hard also because you have to make your way up. But here it's like it becomes very personal. So it's like your personal life and your business, they're all the same thing. So you have lots of challenging. Maybe one that I had very early on was, so from the newsletter, so writing the newsletter every week, very comfortably behind my computer, trying to increasing the followers, doing everything organically, but it was quite nice. I joined the Startup Accelerator, and these guys were like, okay, now I think you should do events, you should be like a public speaker, you should be out there, think like Tony Robbins. And I totally freaked out, because you see Tony Robbins on stage, right? And then you see Vespod and me like with my 3-month-old baby like at home, and I was like, I can't do that. But I was like, okay, what can I do that's gonna be maybe the first step? So I put together like a first workshop for Vespod, but I knew very little in terms of personal finances. I was just learning for myself. So I put this event on Eventbrite. It's quite a big effort, right? I mean, the first time you do an event, like you need you need a logo, you need everything like website and stuff. So I put this event on Eventbrite, and I sent it to my newsletter, and initially no one really registers because it was too early. It was like a month before. And then I had 2 girls from working with my husband in banking who booked their tickets. And I was like, so I have 2 bankers coming to my first workshop about finance and managing your money. And I was like, so then preparing the presentation and stuff, never did really like any public speaking.
Yeah.
And then all my friends were like, don't worry. So they started registering, they brought their friends. So we had a full room. And that was the first workshop. And it was like 2 hours talking about money, where I was like presenting and my slides and stuff. And this was so hard. But you learned so much. It was so uncomfortable, the whole thing, the whole month. And then I did it. And then it got easier. And now I think we've run like 50 workshops or something like this. But
And you make it
I think
easy when you do it.
Yeah, and if you've run events before, it's easy, but the first time you do something like that is actually really hard. So, and these challenges, you have them all the time. I think with public speaking, I now have them. We're talking about, meeting a room full of people working in finance and financial advisors and telling them that, I work in finance, didn't manage my finances, and I want to teach you how to do it. And they're like super skeptical.
Yeah.
So that's like an everyday challenge, to be honest.
So, Krystal, talk to me about a challenge that stands out to you and talk to me about how you overcame it. We're laughing because Krystal and I talk about this a lot, and we'll be like, I'm writing a piece at the moment about founders freaking out. And I was talking to Krystal about the concept of it is sometimes as a founder, or just, I don't know, in everyday life, you can feel like you're falling down a black hole. Like failure can feel like a black hole. And I talked to Krystal, and the piece is exploring what's down the hole. Like, what should we be so afraid of it?
Yeah.
And I remember I was talking to you about it when I read it, and I was like, "Can you relate to that?" And you're like, "I'm always down the hole."
I've got rental properties down the hole.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm basically in the hole all of the time.
So I'm laughing because I know that we're both we live on the verge of the hole, of it the whole time. But it's almost like the fear of falling down it that's the fire up your ass to not go there.
Absolutely.
So go for it.
The failures are the fuel to get out of the hole. Yeah. The failures are so necessary.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I've got at least one big toe in Buddhism.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
And this is true of running your own business is the same as cooking a delicious meal, is the same as spending time with a good friend. You cannot have all of the good without the bad. If you just spoke to a friend and had just frivolous conversations about how fabulous things were all the time, and you didn't cut beneath the surface and really know what was going on, you're missing the meaning of life. She says the black hole is necessary. Is my point. Yeah. You need to explore the fear, take the fear, get it under the arm, make really good friends with it.
Yeah.
It's your bestie. Because that is exactly it's where all of the best parts of life are. Not necessarily in the darkness, but it's transforming that into something.
It's the
more
cocoon for the
fruitful.
butterfly, right?
Absolutely.
And what is failure? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Sometimes you just have to wonder. I mean, I closed my first business. We had raised investment. For me, it was the end of the world. I didn't sleep for like a month.
Right.
It was making me sick, and I was like, it's okay. Like, you're still alive. You still have your husband. You still have your family. You still have a home. That's fine. You can do something else. But that's true. It's really how you learn. But it's really, really uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable.
It's really painful.
That's where I found that is some real advice I would promote. Tell everybody yoga or whatever it
meditation.
is to get into your flow. Use your breath and your spirit and your body as much as you can to create a space within your physical self to really tune into why you're doing it and to remain resilient despite all of the obstacles you'll come up.
I agree with you. That's a lot of work though, and that's something I realized quite late. So I started meditating a lot this year with writing the book because it was extremely stressful, and I thought, the book is not going to work, someone will find out, or like we talked about imposter syndrome, or someone will find something in the book, whatever. And meditation really helped me to just see things in a different way. So you're still going to fail, but I think it's going to be slightly easier.
Yeah.
Gives you a different perspective. And I really believe in having people around you that support you. And I think even if maybe you don't have a supportive family, maybe your friends at school don't get what you're going through. I think especially when you're starting something from scratch, you guys are going to be founders, or SOS instructors are going to be founders in your own right of your own communities. People, unless you've been a founder, it's hard to truly understand what it's like doing something on your own. So that's why I proactively spend time with you guys, because it's therapy for me. And equally, when I go through a challenge, social media, first thing, turn it off. I think if ever you're in that hole, you're in that moment, put your phone, like lock it away if you need to, but turn it off. And my husband came home on Saturday and I was feeling really like irate about something. And he came home and he was a bit drunk, like real talk. He comes home and I'd started eating and he was like, "Oh my God, you've eaten without me, I'm devastated." And I was like, "You're pissed, pipe down." I was like, whatever. And then because I was feeling annoyed about something completely unrelated, I took it out on him because he was like, "Bonnie, I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Well, you better be sorry." And I was like, and I took it out on him. And then we kind of like chilled out, I chilled. And then I talked to him for about an hour about what was really bothering me. And it just made it so, it didn't get rid of the problem, but it changed how I felt about approaching the problem and how I can deal with it. Like, get those people around you that support you and love you just for yourself. And if you don't have them immediately in your family, like, get about the business of finding them, because I think they make a huge difference. So talk to me about imposter syndrome, because I think the most painful thing about imposter syndrome, it's like, it's a real thing to go through. It's, in my experience, it was when I was trying to be a businesswoman for the first time, making the transition from being a dancer in a space where I'd always been very confident as a dancer. Even when dance teachers told me I was rubbish, I was like, "You just don't know what you're talking about."
Good girl.
You know? And then in the business space, suddenly I was wobbly legs. I was like Bambi. I still feel like Bambi, like in the business world, like trying to find your feet. But it was such a different experience. And I went and bought new clothes and I changed my appearance and I tried to convince people that I was what I thought they wanted me to be, which is this businesswoman with an MBA and worked in corporate finance, which clearly, do you know what I mean? Yeah, and I did, and I was so terrified they were going to find out that I was a dancer. So I took all of the videos of me dancing, I took them offline because I thought, if they see me dancing, they won't take me seriously, which was true at the time. And so it was this, I had to keep up this mask, and I almost lost who I was underneath it, because I thought if they find out who I really am, they won't believe in me, which was, to a point, it was right, which is why I had to kind of change lanes. But that's why it's so painful, I think. So talk to me about how you deal with it. You want to go?
Yeah. A good helping of that attitude of how you told your dance teachers, well, you just don't know yet. I mean, if there is, you know, I think if you are acting from a place of truth, as long as you go back to your why and that's consistent, then you just stick with that. You can't. I mean, I hope I don't judge people, because I wouldn't like that the other way around. It's inevitable, but I just try to not think about what people think of me or what I'm trying to achieve. I take on a lot of advice and a lot of help, so I reach out to a lot of people who are experienced in what I'm trying to do, and sometimes that does cloud the initial reason why you're doing something. You know, because it's sensible to take calculated risks on things, but essentially plow on, and whenever the obstacles are there, figure out if you're going up, under, or straight through it, but make sure you get through it. With all the judgments and all the things, because you're just not going to please everybody.
And all the comparison, isn't
all
it?
The comparisons.
It's comparing yourself to other people. Do they have more followers than me?
Yeah.
Do they get whatever it is?
Yeah.
It's that comparison can be so crippling, can't it?
Yeah, and I think really owning who you are and using that to your advantage. Having a dance background, we both have that. That's a tool. That gives us an ability to speak publicly or to perform and to hold ourselves correctly. You know, being in a physical space, I'm sure you would have found it. You know, actually holding yourself correctly.
Yeah.
Us having that background is a useful thing. So it's like, you know, how can we use everything that we've come from, everything where we've been is now useful to where we're going.
That's such an important thing to remember, isn't it?
100%.
You can try and hide your story and hide who you are,
Yeah.
and not realise. You will eventually realise, but know that it's that story that makes you who you are, and it's something to be celebrated and not hidden.
And I've spoken to some women that you would think would never have imposter syndrome ever, would be just, you know, deliver and they know everything and they've got it down and they're sorted and happy and fine. And they're not. And they're the same. And we are all the same. All of us are thinking, all of us are living from our stories, our own version of events. And part of that is going, oh God, I'm going to get found out in a minute. I've not done this, I've not done, you know, that's the nature of, you know, of human beings.
Yeah.
And feeling like you're not good enough is natural.
Because that brings me very nicely on to my next question, which is, what do you what do you learn from your communities? Because what I've learned from my SOS community and what I've learned about myself through the journey of building that community is that women profoundly believe they're not enough.
It's conditioned in us.
It's conditioned in us. I've never met a woman who goes, maybe my sister actually, but then even in a way she, you know, she's on her own journey, but it's a really hard thing to get over because it's not an intellectual thing. It's not, I don't feel enough today. It's, I feel all right, and then someone will say something or do something and it will just take you out from under the knees and it will trigger you in some way. And it's a belief and it's something that you have to work on all the time. So that's what I've learned from my community, and that's where our mission comes from, is to empower a generation of women to believe in themselves and in a deep rooted way. So what have you learned from your Vestpod community?
I think I've learned everything from them.
Really?
So Vestpod has this practical, technical aspects of understanding like pensions and finances and stuff. But this, everyone can do it. Everyone can go online and learn about it. But I think the only way I could get women to learn about it and make their like financial decisions and learn was to see other women doing it and doing it collectively. So I think that helps women empower themselves. So I have to have other women around them. And for me, I've learned where they stand, what are their worries, what are their challenges, what are their hopes. Worries about money, women tend to be quite worried. So when they come to Vestpod, they usually tell me, I'm so bad with money, I don't know where to start, I don't want to talk about it. So I think we come from like a big emotional background for all of us. So it's really getting women to open up. It's really a difficult conversation to talk about money, and it's opening up about your personal life and maybe, your salary, your debt, where you stand, because money is the trigger point for so many things like anxiety, stress, and we talk a lot about wellness and you should pay like gym membership to your employees, and I'm like, can you help them like repay their credit card debt and understand their student loans? But I think you have to have this conversation in a small and safe space, and it's not the conversation that's going to be easy to have with friends because maybe you all have different income, you all spend in a different way. Some of you can go on holidays, others can't go on holidays, or can pay for dinner, and others are struggling. So I wanted like a separate space where women can come. They don't need to know who's in the room, but they know everyone is willing to talk about money and bring their stories. And I try to keep it like super positive, also have a positive conversation about money, because it can very quickly become quite negative. And I've learned a lot. So in order to write my book, I started with, okay, this is what I want to write about. My publisher came to me and she was like, okay, we need a book about money for women and stuff. And I started writing, and then running these workshops and classes and maybe seeing like 2,000 women like face to face and talking about their money worries, I realized this is not what people want. Like they don't want to talk about like big investment decisions and stuff. They want like the day to day. They want to understand the money and emotions and stuff. So I've learned so much from what people really want, and I think that's what the big guys are missing out is talking to real people about their problems and their challenges, and trying to solve like these specific challenges for them.
I think the fact that you create a safe space for women to talk about it in itself has such a huge impact. Krystal, what do you
I'm learning so much just being in this room with you two incredible human beings. I really am. we run mentoring events for young girls, and in those times I've learned so much from 11, 12-year-old girls, what they need, what they were looking for. So much of what you just said resonates so deeply with that. It's confidence every time. I've learned, and it's the same. It's me being the 11-year-old as much as me being the 35-year-old now. It's the same person, really. It's what we're lacking now is what we were lacking then, and it's the confidence to use your voice to ask questions. We've used music and playing music as a way of building confidence. You can physically see the faces change of young girls who suddenly can manipulate sound. Yeah. And they become, and you understand why it's been such a male-dominated industry until now, because it's so powerful. God is a DJ. You stand and you go, wow, I can play guitar. This is phenomenal. It's an incredible feeling, an unbelievable feeling. And using that, having that space, we've took the DJ school into speed mentoring sessions for girls, and we've brought on board a woman with a background in politics, a woman in nutrition, a woman in yoga and mindfulness and music, and this combination of people around in one room.
So powerful.
Is so powerful, and almost every time the thing that everybody lacks is confidence. It's just how are we using our skills to empower that. So that's the thing I've mostly learned. And specifically now, the money element and politics and music. It's a really incredible time to kind of come together and offer that as a solution to the problem, which essentially is hundreds of thousands of years worth of ingrained lack of confidence.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you do or which industry, because I thought, maybe that was the same for you and dance and DJing and music and money. I'm like, I don't want to be in this money space, it's quite boring. I don't want to be spending my life talking about money. But I think it's what you build on top of the industry or on top of the subject. And you're right. It's all about confidence, empowering, and doing it in a different way.
Yeah.
Well, also, I think there weren't this has turned into a very lovely conversation, but it is the roots and having those. It is down to women like us to create the solutions, because honestly, there haven't been them.
Yeah.
And it's now as a result of technology and women like us that we can now go, okay, I can solve this problem. Okay, now you have a route to market.
Yeah.
And believing you're enough to, I think I look at Seen on Screen's mission or School of SOS's mission, I think, wow, it's a pretty big task there. Empower a generation of women so we can move the needle on equality and get us to 50-50 quicker. But I think, why not me?
Yeah.
Don't ask why me, think why not you. I think it's so powerful, and I think there's so many problems in the world right now. I don't need to list them, they're obvious. Pick one, right? And I think it can be very disempowering for women to see someone like Donald Trump and go, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Actually, there's a lot you can do about it. And just from talking about it or creating your own communities, I think we're very much in the driving seat, and we should go for it. And so that leads me on to my penultimate question, which is the confidence that you talk about. I think I see sometimes people, for example, when we split people into groups in a dance class, and you'll see some people be like, no, I'm not doing it. And it's like, you're doing it. Because that's the only way you'll learn. But so, for example, with Ibiza Roxx, you've just had a humongous summer, and you've pulled together the most ridiculous, list of artists. Talk to me about confidence. I want you to both say individually, but where do you get the confidence, the audacity to go, I'm going to do it, and then do it? Where does it come from?
Where do you get the audacity to do it?
But who says I'm going to get a Spice Girls to play at my event and then does it?
Look, there was a lot of really good timing, and I was offering a very good product, and it was very much a team effort. I could not have done it without the support of JD Sports, and they totally see the mission and get it, and they've backed it entirely for the last 2 years, which is phenomenal. But that it's not even a question of where do I get the confidence to do it. I have no choice. I can't do anything other than it. So as long as there's breath in my lungs, that's what's happening. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was really a meeting of minds, both the venue, the sponsor and the mission, and we just pulled off a really good season. It's still not, you know, I've got to deliver it again, I've got to up it. It's never, you can never just kind of, I had a moment where in fact, after every single show, I had to go back to my hotel room and cry. I literally did. And Keisha, who works with me, was just like, oh God. Okay, she's just gonna have to cry for a bit. And I was just like so overwhelmed because it was seeing what I knew was true in my heart and soul, that women on stage delivering what they're great at, and you know, from an art perspective and a fitness perspective, because there's this whole fitness element of the events, it was bringing about so much joy, and other girls were coming up to me going, this is so fun, you know. Yeah. And this creating fun and a joyful environment, especially at a time now where we are trying to create change, is not to be underestimated. It's really important. So it's more to do with the fact that I can't not do it than it is.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Emilie, where do you get your confidence from? So, for example, you've just released a book. Like, I mean, how? Just where does it come from?
I'm trying not to think about the outcome too much, because that puts a lot of pressure. So writing a book is quite a big thing, but I was trying not to think about writing a book, but more about, okay, writing one paragraph today. So trying to be super practical, and you know, when I'm not sure about what I do, I'm like, okay, you have to break down all the actions you have to do, send these emails, and when people start saying yes, then you have to do it. So I try to become super accountable to people. So I say yes, and then I'm like, okay, now I have to do it. And I think that's the only way to learn, and try not to think about confidence and stuff, because you're always asking yourself, should I do it? How do I do it? And it's never going to be perfect. It's going to be really far from perfect. When I wrote this book, I had this, you know, I wrote a lot of memorandum in finance and stuff, like checking like 1,000 times everything. For the book, you don't have time. You just have to write, edit and stuff. And then at some point they're like, done, it's finished. And I'm like, I'm not done. Like, I want to change things. And they're like, no, you've read it like 10 times. It's fine. And I think it's the same for everything I do with Vespod. It's like, if it's 70%, 80%, it's fine. Let's just do it. And then it's fine, because people won't know if it's not, you know, 100%. And it's done. So yeah, done is better than perfect. I think it's a big rule. So getting started.
Taking the pressure off. Yeah. My last question is, what do you want your legacy to be?
Wow.
No pressure.
I want every single woman to be comfortable with money, and to know, like, for her to know she has enough to like live the life she wants. So money should never be an obstacle, I think, for anyone.
I can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah. For every woman to have the confidence to follow their journey and their path, and the tools in which to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible. As I've said many times, mine is to shift the needle on equality and get us there quicker through dance. Ladies, thank you so much. I love you two so much. You inspire me so much. Yes. High fives.
Sister.
High fives. Boom.